Hello, gentle marketers. Welcome to the Gentle Business Revolution podcast, the show where we talk about marketing your business by disrupting the current marketing paradigm and changing it to a gentler approach, one that's based on empathy and kindness. I'm Sarah Croce. I'm the host here, and you know that you're in the right place if you are a heart-centered entrepreneur or change maker who is looking for a better way to market your business. Or you are an entrepreneur who's simply tired of the traditional hypey marketing model and are ready for a paradigm shift, maybe not just in marketing. You might also be a marketing impact pioneer. That's someone who's working in marketing for an organization who does business for good. If you're a regular here, I'm so glad you're here. I love you. Thank you so much for being here. If this is your first time here, welcome. You are listening to a special summer edition episode about the 7 P's of gentle marketing. It's a collaboration with Penney Peirce, a respected clairvoyant empath, visionary author. If you don't know what the 7 P's of gentle marketing are, you can download your one-page marketing plan at sarahsanacroce.com/one-page. That's the number 1 page. I want you to know that this is not your regular episode. I continue to post those on Fridays. But this is a summer special, and I encourage you to subscribe to the podcast on your favorite app so you receive the notifications for these bonus episodes. These bonus episodes are raw, non-edited, just real human conversations about the new, or let's start with the old, about the old and the new perceptions. And Penney and I recorded them over 2 afternoons in June and just had a blast. Episode 44 is a good intro to Penney Peirce and how she sees the world. So if you haven't listened to that one yet, I would recommend that you start with that. Penney can really blow your mind, literally speaking. And every now and then she lost me and my small mind just couldn't follow her out there thinking. And rather than just nodding my head, I told her, "Wow, you just lost me. I don't get it." And so she re-explained. So if you're open to some woo-woo, to some mind-blowing concepts about the intuitive age and where we're heading, I think you'll absolutely love and enjoy these conversations. If on the other hand, woo-woo and energy talk is not your thing, then maybe skip them, or maybe at least listen to this one and then decide whether it's for you or not. So in this first episode, we talk about the first 2 P's of the gentle marketing mandala, which are passion and personal power. So let's dive in, shall we? Hi, Penney. So good to see you.
Hi. This is going to be fun.
Yeah, I know. So much fun. I was like, oh, it's a rainy day here in Switzerland, but I get to hang out with Penney.
And it's a rainy day in Florida. So here we are.
There you go.
It's very intuitive.
Yeah. Is it? Okay. So the rain kind of helps with intuition. That's great. Yeah. So we decided to partner on this and really have you back on my podcast, but we're also recording videos. So this will also go on YouTube. But you had this great idea to just kind of talk about the 7 P's. We did the initial kind of session about more about your work and your books and the home frequency and all of that good stuff. And then you're like, hey, I think we can go really deep into all of the P's and talk about that. So that's what we're going to do. And I can't wait.
Yeah.
What I think would be a good starting point is, like, in general, just kind of talk about this paradigm shift that I talk about, that you talk about, and kind of to set the scene is we're going to release those as a summer special, I called it. So they will release in July, but we're June 4th. And so we're right in the middle of a lot of, how would you say it? Well, uncertainty from the pandemic, that's for sure. But then also with what's going on in the US right now, definitely as some kind of revolution, right? This podcast is called The Gentle Business Revolution, but it's also the gentle people revolution. So why don't you address that, what's going on, what's shifting, and why are people feeling called, and why now to go into the streets?
Yeah. Well, it's a bit of an explanation, so I'll try to make it as concise as possible. And I've been watching it for so many years and watching everything accelerate. I'm sure you have too. Everything's speeding up. There's so much information. We can't process it all in our old manner with our linear brain. And it's just almost overwhelming at times. But also, it's like things are happening faster. It's like time really seems to be speeding up. Like you get instant repercussions almost for things that you do. And I think that it is a long-term process of acceleration on the planet itself, of actual physical energy getting faster. And that affects the body, first of all, so that it makes you vibrate faster, which can affect you in various ways physically. You can get very disturbed, and people get their heart pounds, they get rashes, they get hot, those kind of things. But also then emotionally, it affects us, so that we start to have a kind of a speeding up of our emotions in terms of things that we've suppressed before and didn't have to think about and filed them away in the subconscious mind, which is a very low frequency. We could pretend they weren't there. Well, that's going up too, so that all the fear vibration that was stored is now coming up to the surface into the conscious mind. That means it comes into daily reality in your present moment. And that comes up as old memories of abuse or wounds or things that you just haven't wanted to look at. Either they come up like in dreams or during daily life, or sometimes they reenact in a symbolic form in your life, as though here it is again, So this is a chance, really, because this is all part of a large scale transformation process.
Right.
We are shifting. This is a paradigm shift, right? What people call that, but really it's a perceptual shift. We're going from one way of perceiving the world, which is very linear, to a new way of perceiving the world, which I call spherical and holographic, where everything now is getting sucked into the present moment. And the present moment is this big ball around us. It's our reality right now.
Yeah, that's so interesting, because I think that's definitely what we experience in these months of lockdown. It's like there is only the present, because the past seems so far away that you're like, wow, that seems like ages ago, and you can't plan anything for the future. So all you have,
and who knows what it'll be like, right? Because now they think they've coined the term the new normal. That's been around for a while, but they're calling it the new now. But it's like you're in this state where the past is kind of flat. It's almost like we sort of don't remember it. The future is like, well, not sure what that's going to be like either.
Right.
So yes, there's this time where we have the spaciousness to go into the inner world more, to see who we really are, really.
Yeah.
And to separate out it's like the junk calls or robocalls we get on the phone and the junk mail. We're trying to sort out the junk thoughts from the real true thoughts that come from the soul, or from the core place of reality, which is, that's where the universal laws function so harmoniously.
Yeah.
When you live in there, things just work. The further away you get from that, the more snags you get. So, long explanation, but I feel like we are at a time where we are in a very intense process of clearing all that junk, all that clutter, because we have a sense that there's another way to be where it works better. It's smoother, it's frictionless. We can, we can materialize what we want. There's new ways of doing things, and we're getting the glimmer of that.
Right.
Especially people who've been on a kind of spiritual path for a while are really sensing that. People who've been locked into belief systems and kind of old calcified thinking, well, they're still kind of trying to go back to the old way, but the old way is too slow. And this, of course, relates to business, right?
Right. Yeah. So much. And I like how you say the old way and the new way, the old perception and the new perception. When we discussed the series, we kind of said, okay, that's what we're going to look at for each topic, each P. We're like, okay, this is the old perception.
Right.
And let's also look at the new perception. And
right.
And just to go back to the junk in the, stuff that I guess other people refer to it, or I've heard people refer to it as the shadow that kind of comes back, and we need to look at it. And so, that's definitely, I guess that's what's coming up in the U.S. as a country.
Yes. And I think the pandemic epidemic is giving people a chance to stop all the distraction that they were used to, and going so fast with all the cell phones and everything, that and it's uncomfortable for a lot of people because they don't want to do it. They feel restless and get agitated by having to do that, and so they rebel against it. And I think that then the rebellion about racism in the U.S. is coming some from that feeling of having been contained for so long by racism, by just practices and by the epidemic. It's like, let us out of here, and we want, and there's a lot of energy going out toward this frustration and avoidance also of certain internal things. But a lot of it is just it's like the point where people are at a choice point right now. In many ways. It's like, what kind of politics do I want? What kind of leaders do I want? What kind of life do I want? I have to make a choice now, one side of the line or the other. Do I want to stay in fear and anger and blaming and not taking responsibility for my own reality? Or let's get mature and grow up and, be a spiritual being in a physical world.
Yeah. So interesting.
And I think that's what's up for a lot of people right now.
Yeah, it's this fork where we had so much time to sit with, what is, and now we're like slowly coming out of this, and it's like, well, no, I no longer put up with that, and whatever it may be, right? It's racism, it's other things too, like people hiding things, and just a lot of these things that have been somehow working in a way because we just kind of didn't deal with them, and now people are like, no.
They're old habits, unconscious habits. Remember that old movie with Albert Finney, I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore, and everybody's screaming that out their windows. It's kind of like we're at that point, getting at that point. And there's a lot of confusion still, because this is a bridge time. We're still kind of in the old reality because that's what we learned, and then we're sensing this other thing, and so we're in this kind of mushy, rubbery place where we're backsliding and going forward and, in and out. And so there are all these conspiracy theories and all this stuff that can make us feel more comfortable by explaining it to ourselves in ways that appeal to us.
It's so funny. I just had a guy on the phone yesterday, some insurance broker, and he's like, I have this theory. And he went into this thing. I'm like, whoa, where did that come from? But it's the left brain trying to make sense of it all. Yes.
And part of this shift of paradigm, I said it's perceptual. It really is moving from the left brain dominance, which is analytical and linear. It's
Mm-hmm.
logical and A, B, C, D, and there's a goal, another goal, another goal. It's along a line, and there's empty space supposedly in between the dots,
Right.
and it takes willpower to get from A to B, and then it takes cleverness and all kinds of left brain methodologies in order to succeed. And
Right.
that's kind of behind the old business paradigm. The
Mm-hmm.
new one, and I've been saying this for a long time, that we're moving from the information age to the intuition age,
Mm-hmm.
which is really kind of a parallel with shifting out of the left brain as our main mode into the right brain, which is, the right brain is, there's no language there. It's all a direct immersion into the unified field.
Right.
Everything is there all at once. There almost is no sense of self there. The left brain's function is really to interrupt the right brain so that you can have a focal point, so you can have a sense of individuality or specific things. Otherwise, you just are part of everything. But when you want to access accurate information, now we have to go to the right brain, use our intuition, feel into things softly, not with this heart, like, is it proven?
Yeah.
No, just
Facts.
access, and then translate that back into the left brain to make sense of it and be able to describe it. But then let go again, go back into the right brain and intuition to access or see, well, how could I apply this?
Right.
Just the same old way, or maybe a new way. Maybe
Right.
there's some innovation here that I hadn't thought of before. So we have a working relationship between the two parts of the brain. And of course, also the right brain is so connected to the heart and the whole body and the sensational level of the body. It really feels directly connected with the field around it. It picks up energy waves, for instance. We get energy information. It's vibrational information, right? And we have to learn to translate that into meaning.
Right.
And
Yeah.
that's part of a new skill set.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I write about this in the book that I'm working on, the Gentle Marketing book, where even in marketing, this applies, right? Until now, we were trained as marketers to use our left brain, like talk to the clients, give them facts and benefits and features and all these things, logical things that the left brain can understand. But what we're now being asked to do as marketers is also activate the right brain for the customer, because
That's
the
right.
conscious client that makes these decisions with the right brain. So is this offer beautiful? Is it aligned with my values? Is it aligned with my worldview? So those kind of things that the conscious client will check off, maybe, I don't know if consciously, but definitely will check those off. And then the left brain will say, yes, this is a good deal.
Right. Yeah, I heard recently, how, we're jumping into marketing a little, but that how benefit points are personal,
Mm-hmm.
which would be what you're talking about. These are things you could feel.
Yeah.
Right. And weigh with your own body about how would that be for me? Ooh, that would feel good. Yeah. Features are left brain.
Yeah.
And they said if you're approaching a highly intellectual audience, you work with features,
right? They're not there yet.
Yeah, right. But anyway, yeah. So we're having to do both now, really, and with a higher emphasis on personal connection.
Mm-hmm.
It's partly because of the internet and social media. People want to know things about leaders, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want just a leader over there separated from them that's this, anonymous figure.
Right.
They want to know something about their life and who they are, and they want to have a relationship with them.
They want to be on the same level.
That's right.
Yeah, that's why I say the customer doesn't want to be king anymore. They're like tired of being kings and queens. They want to be on the same level to communicate with the.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah.
So let's go into a bit the two first P's, right? Mm-hmm. Which are passion and personal power. So let's probably start with passion, because I remember you saying that even for me, passion or purpose was kind of this thing on the list that you are supposed to have. After reading Simon Sinek's book, Start with the Why, I was like, oh my God, I don't have a why. How do I get a why? And it was like this other thing that someone had to do
Right.
in order to be a good entrepreneur. So
yeah.
tell us where this, again, it's probably left brain thinking, where this comes from. And yeah, ego, willpower, those are words that you mentioned.
Right. Well, I think passion's a pretty inflated word, and the left brain loves inflation, right? Because if you identify with your left brain, that's ego.
Yes.
Right? Too much left brain, and you're so isolated from the world and thinking that it's all up to you and you're all powerful. So I steer away from that word almost totally, because if you drop down through the layers that are underneath passion, like I think if you're quiet and you go to the right brain and you start to feel what feels fun for me, what is coming out of my home frequency, which is to me, I call that, it's like how you feel when you're like the soul in the body, when you're just being really authentic and almost childlike in your enthusiasms and stuff, And so I think it starts with, you get glimmers and glimpses of certain kinds of action and experiences that you like to have. Then that maybe turns into curiosity, which is a kind of a forward moving thing. It's, oh, what about this? And then maybe that you start to explore that and it becomes an enthusiasm. Right. Which is like a warmth of like, yes. And it starts motive going. You start getting attracted to the idea of bringing some kind of vision or idea down in frequency in order to materialize it into its form counterpart, right? Because this is the fun of being in the physical world. It's like, oh, I got an idea in the non-physical world. What would that look like in the physical world?
How do I transpose it?
Right. How do I drop it in? How do I make that happen? And that's the fun. Right. It's like playing in the sandbox. Right. So, okay, enthusiasm, yes. And then we get into dropping it closer to the mind, where we can start to almost like say, well, it could be like, it could happen maybe in these stages, or it might look like this when it's in form. And but passion is when you stay in your truth and your home frequency and you do these things and you think, this was so much fun, I want to do it again. And I love creating things. And I love creating things that help other people or that contribute to the world, but that also entertain me.
Right.
Oh, sacrifice.
Feel good.
Yeah, but it's non-sacrificial. You're not doing it to be a good person or anything like that. There's no other reason. Right. No left brain reason.
Yeah, there's no agenda for the passion.
Exactly.
Let me be passionate so I can sell more.
Yeah. And so motivation, is, I think, comes from that root of that core alignment that you have. And your work becomes who you are. Your projects are symptomatic of who you are, and they're pieces of you, that are coming out and you're offering to the world.
Right. Yeah. I say in marketing, in gentle marketing, bring more of you to your marketing. And by that, I don't mean, let me show off how good I am and let me show off that I've worked with all these great clients. No, more of you and your stories and your curiosities. And that's what I mean by bringing it.
Yes. And part of that is that partly because our vibration is going up, we are becoming ultra sensitive, and a lot of people are becoming very empathic as well. They feel everything now. So it's feeling oriented. And we can feel lies and we can feel truth. We can feel when something's in alignment with kind of a universal flow and when it's out of alignment. And if you know how to be deeply comfortable, you don't let yourself go out of alignment very much. Right. When you start to get into an assumption or a behavior that's, ego-based or fear-based, you go, that's not right. It doesn't feel good. So then you come back to center and you get recentered and you ask again and you get a new idea of how to behave and how to go forward. But I think that this desire for the more personal thing has to do with transparency, right? With the desire to know what's really real and to discriminate. Wait a minute, that isn't quite right. Why isn't that? They're hiding something, or this product, maybe it's not complete, or something. I think people are getting pretty savvy about this.
Yeah, it's interesting because authenticity has been a buzzword for several years now. However, people kind of maybe misunderstood, because the word by itself is a good word, that it really means what it means. However, people thought, especially in marketing, they thought, let me learn how to be authentic and let me kind of, do the things that authentic people do. But there's just no way of learning a cookie cutter approach to being authentic. What it means is learning more about you and your home frequency, probably.
Right. Yeah, it's a feeling thing. And of course, the left brain doesn't come from feeling. It comes by analyzing and maybe having all those steps. So whenever something has to have a formula or a process that's, written down, it's all left brain kind of thing.
Yeah.
and
people love that though, right? It's like,
oh yeah, people who are in that identity love that. Yeah.
If we kind of bring this back together, and we said we were going to look at the old perception and the new perception, how would you wrap this up and say, look,
with passion,
this is the old perception and this is now a new way?
Well, I think the old way is, remember, when you feel like things are separate, like you're here and your goal is there, over there, out in the outside world, which is seen as being separate from you. Now, that's the old way. The new way is you're in a big ball and nothing is separate from you. Right. Any possible reality is already there. Your goal is already done. It's already part of you, and it's easy. All right. But the old way, it's difficult because you have all this empty space to cross. You must use willpower, cleverness, any tools you can have, manipulation, whatever. And so passion in that old way is like this. It's like the top level of motivation. It's like you have got to push really hard and be really turned on and be really contagious about the way you get across to other people, in order to be successful, in that definition. And it's all about willpower.
Yeah.
Right? Inflation and willpower and this, like, got to be strong, got to, gear it up to overcome the inertia of everything, and the new way, it's like there's no effort at all. It's who we are. We are made of enjoyment and love and compassion and all these wonderful things. It's so natural to be turned on about anything. It's more like, which choice can you make? Because I love it all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So interesting. When I was looking for quotes about passion, I did find all these kind of older men. They were all men, right? They had to have these famous quotes about, passion is, hard work and play hard, work hard and then play hard, or something like
yes.
All these kind of old beliefs that's what we were taught, that this is what passion looks like.
It's also about intensity. That's the amplification of it. And I think that intensity, if you look at it, even that from the new perception, it's more about purity. It's not, intensity is like, pushing hard, against something, like really get your force level up. In a more spiritual context or the new perception, it's more about being so in tune with higher understanding of how the universal laws work, which is the spiritual realm, and understanding how effortless it is, and being that, having memory of that, and then operating from that, and just having faith in that, because it's the truth.
Yeah.
And you don't have to push.
Yeah. Obviously, you know that I'm, still kind of in the process of that as well, coming
Yeah.
from this left brain brainwashing. And so every now and then I hear you talk and I'm like, yeah, I can
Sort of
understand
get
what you're saying,
it.
but I'm not there yet. And it's so interesting because when you said intensity, I'm like, yes, like that's another thing. Like, you hear startup people or entrepreneurs saying how passionate they are, and almost in the same sentence is like, I work 12-hour shifts, but it's okay because I'm so passionate. It's like your brain kind of builds this belief that passion means working 12-hour shifts.
Yes.
It's like we're brainwashed that passion
Right.
means intensity and hard work.
Right. Yeah. And the hard work comes out of that old idea about I have to use willpower and force and everything to cross this space toward my big goal,
Right.
which is separate from me.
Right.
And separation always causes that kind of false action, I guess you would say. False thinking, false action.
Mm. Yeah. Anything else you'd like to add to passion?
Passion. No, I think that does it for me. There's nothing wrong with really intense feelings of love, but I would call it ecstasy instead of, passion maybe, but it's all on the scale of feeling, right?
Right. So the second P, maybe I can show my mandala so people kind of know what they're.
Good idea. Yeah.
So the second P is personal power. So what I did is basically I took the 7 P's of marketing, which is a concept that has been out there for a long time. And I looked at the P's and I said, okay, these are outdated. Let me update it. And, not having met you yet, but I kind of said, okay, we have to start with the inner. So this is kind of the inner work. Let's start with the inner work first, to figure out who we are, what our values are, our worldview, so that we can then bring that more into our marketing and resonate with the people, with our ideal clients, and then go into the doing mode.
Got it. Yeah.
So the second P is personal power, and pretty much it's your home frequency for me. Like personal power was my word for saying, let's find out who we are, how we are wired. Am I an introvert, an extrovert? What are my values and my worldview and all of that? So we talked about the home frequency, the way you see it in the previous episode.
Yeah.
And what we discussed when we discussed is you were saying, wow, it's interesting to use that word power, because again, it's a powerful word, and it's kind of like, maybe from the old perception. So ego driven and let me power through this.
Right.
So that's not what I had in mind, but let's discuss this idea of power.
Yes. Well, power by itself to me is another one of those words like intensity and so forth, where we usually think of it as power over, to overcome, to make something happen, make it happen with our willpower the way we want it to happen. But I think more it's now power to do things, power to the ability. It's an ability to understand how to bring things into form through the power of attention.
Right.
And I discriminate between intention and attention, because attention is present moment and focus, and intention is futurizing, and it uses willpower. So it's coming out of left brain thinking. Mm-hmm. All right. So, but so for me, power is, what would you call that? It's almost like a recognition of your ability to stay in alignment with universal principles and work with them. Mm-hmm. That about it, you work with it, it's part of your life. It's so natural that you don't have to have power over anything, because you understand how materialization and even dematerialization, and I use that word instead of manifesting, because I think manifesting is like an old, jargony thing now. But it is about materializing ideas. And then if you have something that you don't like and you're done with it, you've used it, you've lived it, you can dematerialize it by taking attention out of it. Right. So working with attention is like a powerful skill now, right? Because that helps you live well and understand the physical world and how it works, basically.
Yeah.
And so personal power, though, I think you were right on understanding what the personal self is, what the individuality is. It's like the particle version of ourselves, and we have the field also. That's ourself too, the huge self. And but there's a sense that we have a story about ourselves that comes a lot from the left brain, again, from the amassing of incidents and things that happen to us and what other people have told us about ourselves and how we look and all, cultural mores and all this, that it's like a superficial thing. And if we identify with that and attach attention to that, then we become limited by that. Right. I'm a this on the Myers-Briggs. I'm a this kind of whatever, personality type. But you can shift yourself so easily by shifting attention into different feeling states. So you're not limited.
Yeah.
But there are core things about each person, I think, that are really of the soul. There are deep, deep kinds of desires that the soul has to do work in the world. And it might be combinations of artistic stuff or mechanical things or spiritual things or educational things or whatever that guide a lot of the decisions that you make in your personality. So to really have power, I think you need to stay in touch with that deeper level of soul's work. Right.
Power also makes me think, obviously, of, political power, systems power, and all of that. So we kind of touched on it in the beginning, those kind of systems and power struggles are changing as well.
Yes.
So we know the old perception, we're in it right now, we're living it. So what are we shifting to? Like maybe politically speaking, countrywide, but also business-wide?
Right, similar. Because it's an old hierarchical system where there's a CEO or a president or something at the top.
Right.
And that has all the power goes up there.
Right.
And that's what we think. Because that's what we see. That's the point. And that point is governed by ego.
Right.
So much. That's the individualized personal self separated from everything below it. And it just, in my opinion, that kind of mechanism is just too slow anymore. What we need is the empowerment of all the people below to be creators all on their own, to have their own personal power. And then the structure of governments and business systems flattens, right? And then everybody gets empowered to be a creator, and hopefully then they clear themselves of fear and negativity in the process, especially by associating with other clear people. And by going into collaborative groups, which is like with the partnering piece you're talking about, but being able to share with people who are doing good works and are working with the higher principles and a kind of higher frequency consciousness. Then what happens is those groups start sharing with other groups, and the solving of critical problems is not competitive anymore. It becomes very collaborative and cooperative and like a fun game. It's not competing against each other to win. It's like, let's do this for the fun of being together. Right. And so and who wants the credit for being better than somebody else? No, that is like, then we get separated from them. And we don't want to be separated from, and that's what's coming.
Right.
And I'm seeing it starting now, especially now with so much on Zoom and on these, platforms where we can all have groups of people together. It's very interesting how that's affecting our consciousness now. That's going to just multiply.
And it's interesting also to see kind of the old hierarchical systems, the big companies where there is no attachment to purpose from any of the employees. You can tell that they are not as motivated as if there was some attachment to the purpose of the company.
Right.
So where there is some attachment to a common goal, even if the goal is not just profit, but also purpose, or especially if then people want to work, even though they're now all working from home, there's less control. No, they work just as hard.
That's right. Yeah,
where
that's
the
right.
old system, people would be like, oh, let me just try to, get away with not working and still getting paid. Right. And so, yeah, it's really...
When you're really getting those internal needs met, you don't have to rebel.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's a big waste of time, isn't it? To have to be in resistance and rebellion, it contracts your consciousness down. Right. When you resist something, you're basically pulling all your energy in, and then you have no flow.
Yeah.
You stop your own progress.
Right.
And this is part of universal laws. It's like, how does energy work? How does consciousness work?
Right.
We're starting to understand these things and then changing our behaviors, accordingly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I think that, in business, we're already have been seeing new forms of business structure and, employee owned or shares of things and all of that. And, but we're still highlighting the sort of celebrity CEOs and all of that,
Like you said, we're in a transition, and even though things are going faster, it will, still probably take a bit until we see more of the new.
It's as though some people are really special and others are not. And I think we just, we have to see the specialness in everyone and raise it up. Right.
Beautiful. I think this is a good point to close the passion and personal power, but we'll be back with more next week, and we'll record another one about, what did we say? The next one was people. People, and then basically we'll go through all the P's. I want you to mention though, like which book of yours would be like, the best fit, or, I mean, you have so many, so you can mention two.
Well, there are 10 books altogether, but, the 4 that are all about this transformational process, and they all kind of work as a sequence. The Intuitive Way is the first one, which is a course on intuition development.
Right.
Then Frequency, which is the power of personal vibration, which is a lot of this, how to work with energy. Mm-hmm. And then Leap of Perception is the book that talks about the change from linear to spherical perception. And that one is a really, I think, important book. And then the last one is Transparency.
Right.
And so that's talking a lot about what's going to happen when we do clear fear and the new kind of intuition age starts to happen. What's it going to feel like? How is it going to work? What are the symptoms of it, and so forth. Yeah.
Yeah. And so people can find those on Amazon, but do also mention your website so people can...
My website is just my name, pennypeirce.com, and it's PENNEY PEIRCE, Penney Peirce.
Wonderful. Great. And we'll be back with another episode next week. Thanks for listening.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
So, did I overpromise? I hope not. Next week, we'll speak about the P for people. So if you found this episode interesting, make sure to subscribe to the podcast so you get notified when the next one goes live. Thanks so much for listening. We'll be back next week. And on Friday, I'm also posting a regular episode, a solo episode in which I discuss the question, what's the risk of excluding certain people when talking about your worldview? Let's be the change we want to see in the world. Speak soon.